And I didn't realize, because I am doing a lot of historical research,
Hmm.
I didn't realize how kind of ignorant I was to the identities historically represented in American culture. You never know what you take for granted. I think, especially at our level of our learning,
Hmm.
and how history can in itself be a narrative. So I was very cognizant that I wanted African Americans to be present. I wanted white Americans to be present, possibly an immigrant population to be present, and Native Americans to be present. Once I did my historical research, I realized I had totally ignored the Latino migrant population,
Hmm.
completely ignored. Didn't even conceptualize that migrant farm workers would have made it all the way to Kansas.
Hmm.
Of course they did.
Right, right. Yeah.
Of course they did. Um, I don't have any Asians present in my text now, but if I can historically find something to support, I
Hmm.
will definitely incorporate
Hmm.
Asians into the Kansas landscape.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that influences my writing a lot too. And see, that changes my novel
Hmm.
because I want to have some integrity to the environment that I'm writing about. I think that's important.
Yeah, could you describe sort of along those lines?
Mm-hmm.
And I love research. I just love researching, like particularly historical research when doing creative work. Could you describe maybe some of your favorite or interesting sort of historical artifacts or documents that you found, like as you're working on, yeah, not just this
Um,
project but other projects too, if you want.
um, well, I take some, but I don't take all. Like, it was kind of funny going to the state archives in Kansas and looking for these reports. At this time, the jail was called the Girls Industrial School.
Huh.
So the archivist kept looking for it in the education files, and I
Huh.
kept telling them, the report is here. It's a state report. You have to look under correction facilities and
Hmm.
jails. And it took us about 3 hours to find them,
Wow.
the state
Wow.
reports, because, the changing of names, the changing of administrations.
Hmm.
It really gave me more insight on or into bipartisan politics and how they operate in Kansas.
Hmm.
Having a Republican governor versus a Democratic governor, and really in Kansas during that time with the low population, how shifting in parties could really upset the state and local governments,
Hmm.
like really upset them and change, the landscape a lot, the cultural landscape a lot.
Yeah.
So it was getting to know Kansas for me, because I feel like it's hard for you to live somewhere if you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. Have you been to I'm assuming you probably have, like the
Mm-hmm.
Jazz Museum that's in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a very idiosyncratic question, but I kind of ask all my friends who've gone there this question. Okay, when you walk out of the Jazz Museum, did you notice the sort of like false
Yes.
1930s storefronts? What do you think about those? I mean, or how did you feel when you kind of
That
discovered those?
nostalgia.
Yeah, like.
I don't. It's just incomplete regentrification, and coming from an urban city that has gone through regentrification and seen that kind of progress and change happen, um, it's kind of disheartening because it's like an abandoned project, and then I'm going to put a mask over it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so, like I said, it's kind of an idiosyncratic question, but it makes me very melancholy to
Mm-hmm.
see that when I go. Particularly, it's such I think a uplifting experience to go to the Jazz Museum and to listen to that history. But I mean, it's always bittersweet for me to like then you walk out onto the street, and then you have that sort of false storefront. So yeah, I wanted to ask you
Yeah,
about
that.
that.
And it's not even historically accurate in the coloring or anything.
It's very odd. It's
Yeah,
very odd,
yeah.
and it's very strange. Let's see. Okay, well, maybe can I move on and ask you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Another,
sorry. I want to
no.
add one more thing
Yeah,
about
please do.
that
Please do.
historical cultural piece. Um, Going back to On the Other Side of Heaven, um, that story was narrated in English, but all of the dialogue is in Spanish because of its cultural placement in Panama. Um, and I did minimal research on Panama for that, probably less than 2 hours worth. But I felt I still had to give the integrity to the language because I couldn't imagine my protagonist speaking in English with his disdain for Americans.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I really want to read this story. I haven't read this.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read it
I'll
now.
share it with
I'd
you.
love to read it. Let's see. Okay, another question, I guess, from my list here. I think our conversation's been great so far. I just let's see, what's something else here? Oh, okay. Again, I guess this is touching again on that issue of sort of the fact that you explained it really well, that sort of, but you've worked in both forms. You've worked in poetry, and you continue to work in both forms. So I'm just curious, like, in your own experience and with your own writing, do you feel like there are certain things that you found that make better poems than stories, or vice versa? Or...
Experience makes better poems than stories. I think poetry lends itself to beauty and truth. And I think my lack of experience really inhibits my poetic quality. I just haven't seen enough. I haven't experienced enough. I haven't felt enough. And I also think in fiction, one of my strengths is that I'm able to be honest with myself. But one of my limitations in my fiction that I don't find in poetry, because poetry gives you the liberty to kind of exaggerate and illustrate by other means. And fiction doesn't allow that. But right now, my protagonist is emotionally failing. And my protagonist is emotionally failing because in some ways I emotionally
fail.
Right. So, because I haven't found a trigger for the emotions that I need for my character to experience, I'm limited. Right now, my character is having a homosexual experience. And not only am I failing in that relationship, but prior to the homosexual relationship, she had a crush on a boy that rejected her. And unanimously in workshop, which I recognized before I got to workshop, they were like, you never even explored emotionally how she felt when she was dumped. And like, those are things I really need to deal with, because maybe I don't deal with my own rejections or my own intimacies well enough.
Okay, so but you need this character, like you need this character to work through that stuff. And a question too, like with what I get, and maybe this is very different depending on the particular character, but when you tend to work on a story or work on like your novel, how do you feel about your characters? I mean, I think it's interesting some of the things you've said about them, like how they're sort of leading you in directions that maybe are unexpected to you. Do you feel like, I guess, what relationship do you feel like your characters have to who you are? Like,
they are my guide in that world. I wholeheartedly listen to them. I never tell my characters no, because I'm afraid to mess up my story.
And you feel like as long as you sort of listen to them,
then
your story will be okay. Okay, and then is that sort of what if there's something you feel like you can trust in that process, is that one of the things you feel like you can trust? Is that
I just have to get my protagonist to an emotional space where I can witness that, or at least experience that, or something. I almost would say, like, I used to think of it as an incantation, like I would become the character, whomever the character was, male, female, old, young. But it's not that, because particularly in this novel, I can't become my protagonist because I would ignore the other voices. So I just have to listen to them. I can't be them.
You said that your characters will tend to be sort of your guides, like for that world in the story. Do you feel like your characters are guides for you, or they can be guides for you, like in your own life? Or is that too weird? I mean, I know you're the one writing the story.
Weird.
But...
I have other guides.
Okay.
Like, my mentors that are